Hi guys, so today we're going to go through Macbeth Act 1 Scene 3. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button and the bell so you get notifications when I upload the next video. Okay, let's get going. So key characters. In this scene we've got the witches, Macbeth, Banquo, Ross and Angus. In key themes we have the supernatural, deceit and ambition. So in this scene we meet the three witches again. They tell Macbeth of the prophecies, and we also get to see his reaction and Banquo's reaction to the prophecies. Then in the end we have Ross and Angus come in to tell Macbeth that what the witches have actually said is true, as he's now been awarded the title Thane of Cawdor. Here we also see Macbeth battle with himself about whether or not he should believe or, act on the prophecies himself. So the witches. So we meet the witches killing swine, so they're killing pigs, and one witch is threatening to drain an innocent man as dry as hay. This simile reveals the violent and evil nature of the witches. There's also reference to her robbing him of sleep, which foreshadows the sleep that Macbeth is set to lose later in the play, after he does commit the act of regicide. Dramatically, Shakespeare uses a drum to introduce Macbeth on stage. It shifts focus from the witches and their evil plans to the protagonist Macbeth. So when the witches greet Macbeth, they welcome him respectfully, hailing him as though he were already king. All hail Macbeth, hail to thee, hail Thane of Glamis, Thane of Cawdor, king hereafter. The witches are telling him of the growth that he should expect with his position. Then we have the next important character in this scene, which is Banquo. So this is Macbeth's right-hand man in the battles he's just fought. So when Banquo first describes the witches, he talks about them being so withered and wild. They look like they're not inhabitants of the earth. Inhumane is kind of his perception when he first sees them. And because of this, he questions whether they're real, asking, "Are ye fantastical?" Banquo isn't sure about his perspective of the witches, but noticing that Macbeth seems to be in a trance, he questions the witches of why they speak to Macbeth of noble and royal hope, but speak to him not. And he asks for them to tell him his future because he does not fear what they have to say. Also, when he sees Macbeth in this trance-like state, Banquo questions him and asks him, "Why do you start and seem to fear things that do sound so fair?" So here we're able to see that Banquo is also quite ambitious, because he's hearing the prophecies and all he can hear initially are the good in what the witches are saying, and questions Macbeth of why he looks so afraid or looks so shocked when what he's being told is a positive. But then Banquo's perspective changes. So here, the instruments of darkness tell us truths, win us with honest trifles to betray us in deepest consequence. So Banquo becomes dubious about the witches and their prophecies and warns Macbeth to be careful, because the witches are servants of the devil. The metaphor of them as instruments makes it clear that they're playing on the emotions and the ambitious nature of the two soldiers. So it may seem good, but in the end the consequences may be too grave for them. Most importantly in this scene, the audience actually meets Macbeth. So the theme of ambition and the possible intention of him being deceitful becomes evident, because he is very interested in what the witches have to say. So he says, "Stay, speak, I charge you." So this imperative tone shows that, one, he's not afraid, and second, that he's intrigued. He wants to know more. As soon as he's heard this, he's like, "Really? Like, I'm going to be king?" It's clear that Macbeth is influenced and overtaken by the prophecies, because he stands and he questions, "This supernatural soliciting cannot be ill, cannot be good. If ill, why hath it given me earnest of success?" So if it's bad, if it's good, what is it? He's like being told something really good so that he'll succeed and, go up in the ranks. But he kind of knows that because they're agents of darkness, that there's probably something else going on there. So he's questioning it, but his brimming ambition forces him to, continue to ask them to stay. The horrid image that haunts him. So Why do I yield to that suggestion, whose horrid image doth unfix my hair, and make my seated heart knock at my ribs against the use of my nature? So the horrid image is that of murdering the king. So the metaphor of his heart beating so hard it shakes him at the core suggests that Macbeth knows that this is immoral and goes against the natural order, because the king is God on earth, and even considering killing him or causing any harm to him is unnatural. So in the end, Macbeth decides, if chance will have me king, why chance may crown me without my stir. So if I'm meant to be king, I'll become king. I shouldn't have to stir, I shouldn't have to move to do anything in order to make it happen. So some structural features that you should note down. So we've got repetition. So there's a repetition of the spell-like chant that we see, similar spell-like chant from the witches in the opening, where they're all hail, all hail. And we've also got the repetitive use of the imperative tone. So Macbeth's excitement and his, kind of intrigue, and the use of repeated imperatives makes this clear to the audience. We've got the dramatic device, the drum, so it's used to draw the audience in and capture their attention on the protagonist. It builds tension because now we get to finally meet Macbeth. So initially we get an understanding of his character from the perspective of all of the other characters, but now we're meeting him and we're seeing that he truly is an ambitious and determined and really lacks fear. He's been faced with 3 witches and there's no concern in comparison to Banquo, who questions them and looks at them as though they're devilish inhabitants of another world. We've got reference to the paradoxical words from the opening, so fair and foul. So Shakespeare is reminding the audience to be aware that what is good may be bad, or vice versa, which links to the theme of appearance versus reality, which was mentioned in the opening. So watch out for characters because they may be good in one moment and bad in the next. Again, Macbeth's tone is sharp and authoritative in his first meeting of the witches. So it obviously shows his ambition, but it also shows his courage. So some contextual factors. So kingship. So here it's made evident that the consideration of committing regicide is unnatural because Macbeth is immediately haunted by the visions, and the audience themselves would be able to relate to this because the king was to be loved, and as God-fearing and king-serving and loving people, they would have known that killing God's vessel, the king on earth, is just a no-go. Again, supernatural. So here the prophecies, it just links to what we were told in the opening, that things may not be as they seem. We're guided by these evil beings. We get the horrid images that haunt him immediately after he's been told these prophecies that are wonderful for him in regards to his title, but in what he may be expected to do to bring him about, not so much. So gloss up your glossary. So rap with all. So this is where Macbeth is in a trance-like state. To unfix, to mess up. Swine or pigs. Fantastical is imaginary, and withered is shriveled. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. If you're confused about anything that was said, or you'd like more notes on context or structure for the previous scenes, please go back, and yeah, good luck guys.